This is the hardest FPS game in the world, Rainbow Six Siege. A one-shot headshot 5v5 team. This game is so hard that 80% of new players quit just within the first 4 hours of playing. Just think about that. Now you're probably wondering,
when I first played Rainbow Six Siege back in 2017, I was honestly amazed with how unique the game was. You had these unique roster of Special Forces operatives with their own special abilities and their own backstories on how they became the very person they are now. Not that many people actually read the bios, though I do appreciate the writers that do make the bios for the characters in Siege. Rainbow Six Siege is one of the best FPS games in the genre, don't even try arguing with me. The game came out in 2015 and there is still no other FPS game that is like Siege. There is no other game that executes map design, gunplay, teamwork, and sound like Rainbow Six Siege. The most interesting part about Siege is the sound design. There is no map in this game, so you have to rely on sound, your drones, and callouts from your teammates. The more you play the game, the more you pick up on certain sound cues. Most of them are so unique to the point where, amidst all the chaos that's happening, you can still probably hear Rainbow Six Siege is just incredible. I wonder who made Siege.
I prefer not to speak, really. I prefer not to speak.
What's funny to me is that the main problems of Siege are not only the developers, but the community too. The skill gap in this game is so big, you can sometimes be confused on which suggestion is the right one. But Ubisoft, you guys are game developers. You gotta do better than this. Blackbeard is the worst operator in the game. Everybody knows that. So you have Blackbeard, an operator with one of the worst guns in the game, alongside with an obsolete ability. What do you think Ubisoft did?
If a player finds themselves in the trap, they have 2.5 seconds to remove it off themselves. And what I mean by that is it takes 2.5 seconds to remove it. After that, a 25-second debuff is applied to the player, which stops them from sprinting and leaves a blood trail. And then on top of that, the audio team...
They rework Frost, one of the more decent operators in the game. Look, I'm not against the idea of reworking older operators, and this isn't one of the worst changes in the game, but this has to be one of the more unnecessary changes. All this time and resources should have been spent on making Blackbeard playable, rather than forgiving players who are careless. What annoys me about these type of changes is the reactions from the community. For some reason, any change that happens in the game that is bad is actually because a guy in Pro League said to change it, not because Ubisoft made a bad decision. Another habit that Ubisoft has that I dislike is recycling weapons. I'm not entirely against recycling weapons, but when you do it almost every time on most operators you're making yourself seem lazy. The number one priority should be get quality updates out rather than doing this. The idea of reworking older maps is a great idea. I'd love to see a map like, Plane be reworked and put into ranked. What I'd also like to see are more consistent releases of new guns with cooler looking operators. The design team for Siege are great, but you still can't escape the feeling of the designs of the operators being a bit underwhelming. Rainbow Six Siege should capitalize on having a Special Forces theme by embracing the, tactical. One of the design team's best works has to be Solis and Nook. Solis has a sense of futuristic tech, but it blends in perfectly with the modern military equipment that she has. Nook is just badass. Sometimes the designs are just a whole bunch of nothing like Wamai and Malusi, but at the end of the day, I think Siege can benefit from adding more military detail, or in other words, adding a bit more tactical into the character designs. Most Siege matches are decided by how you and the other team react to each other's plans. Every round is entirely different because you and the other team are always adapting to each other's playstyles. If you aren't willing to adapt to the opposing team's playstyles, then you lose.
You guys are so shit! You guys are so shit! I'm about to fucking leave! I have 4 yings! Why the fuck are... Yo, I have said this for an hour! If you're gonna do something, say it!
You can also just lose by just making small mistakes like misdroning a roamer or a trap. But that's the beauty of Siege. It rewards players who learn. It rewards players who are not only mechanically insane, but are also able to play strategically. I think that's what separates Siege and other FPS games. There's no map, there's no aim assist that PC players can complain about. It has a unique sound system and the many operators with all of them having unique abilities. It's not the hardest FPS game in the world, but rather it goes against the core of most FPS games and what FPS players are used to. I think Siege is in a pretty good place right now. Jynxzi is literally getting players back into the game and attracting more players to get Siege. And I think Ubisoft can capitalize on this and start working harder with the momentum they have. I personally think the new consulate rework is great, but once again, what I'm asking for are new guns, old maps like Plane being reworked to be put into ranked, a Blackbeard rework, the character designs to be a bit more tactical, and overall more communication between the developers and the community. I think occasionally doing a public Q&A in Reddit or in forums would be a great way to start a bond between the developers and the community. It's a lot healthier for the community to understand what the developers are going for and what they're planning, rather than the community assuming what the developers are going for and what they're planning. If you ignore the garbage group of Siege players, you can actually find decent human beings in the community and content creators that are willing to help or just entertain the Siege community. Siege has had its ups and downs. We've seen many broken operators and metas, and sometimes I ask myself some questions. Will Blackbeard ever get reworked? Will the warden in my team ever realize that his ability counters flashes? Why does the Snorlax behind Varsity look so uncomfortable?
I don't like that. Oh my god, I do.
And lastly, will this finally be Siege's year?
Jay, literally say this. English. Okay. Jynxzi, I'm gonna plant behind the metal sandbags. I'm gonna plant behind the sandbags. Ying and smoke off sight. Boom, that hits my brainwaves. Now I know what my team is doing. I can throw my yings, I can throw my smokes. You can plant. You walked in and started planting like I haven't even thrown a ying yet. Stop doing that shit.